Hi, I'm Miriam Katz. I often have introductory conversations with people who are considering having a shamanic healing session or have signed up for a shamanic healing session and don't know what to expect. So my purpose in recording this video is to provide that information to help you make a decision about whether to pursue shamanic healing session with me, and also to help you prepare if you already have signed up for a session. So let's talk about what a session looks like and what you can expect from a shamanic healing session. The first time that I work with someone, I typically work with them for an hour and a half, whereas in follow-up sessions, it tends to be about an hour. And the reason behind the 90-minute session is because there is foundational work that is important to complete in order to prepare your energy body for going to deeper and deeper levels of healing. When I talk about foundational work, I'm talking about clearing out your energy body from any sort of energies that are not yours, energies that you've picked up in the world, imbalances that are happening in your field, disruptive types of energies that can prevent us from moving into more transformational, deeper work. That said, even just clearing out those rogue kind of energies can provide a ton of freedom and relief and a feeling of lightness and like a brighter interaction with the world. So that in itself can be very transformational. It varies from person to person, but a lot of people come to me after a breakup or some sort of trauma in their life, and enough time has passed that they would assume that they'd be feeling better by now, but they're not. So in those kind of situations, oftentimes a soul retrieval is indicated. So a soul retrieval is the antidote to what a shamanic practitioner would call soul loss, which is when at the time of a trauma, whether it's an impact trauma like a car accident, an emotional wounding like a breakup or a loss of someone special in your life, or even just a moment of shock, part of us in an act of self-preservation flees the body, and we're left with less of our vital energy on board. We would call this soul loss. And so in those kinds of situations, retrieving that soul part, healing it, and bringing it back on board, integrating it into the rest of you, the wholeness of you, will help you to feel more yourself. I often describe soul loss as a feeling of the lights are on, but no one's home, a feeling of not being fully there in your body, feeling like you're not fully inhabiting yourself. Those are some of the symptoms or indications that you may have experienced soul loss. Soul retrieval is one of many shamanic tools that I use, and I target the tools to meet the needs of a given client in a given session. The way that shamanic healing works and the way that I work as a shamanic healer is that I am channeling energies that are greater than my own. So I often work with the goddess or with deities from other cultures. Oftentimes those deities will be targeted towards you and your soul path. Once the work is done, we tend to get the clues and the understanding of why this particular being showed up. I often work with plant allies, mushroom allies, power animals. There are various beings in non-physical reality who have certain types of ability, power that they can bring into you and restore you to your wholeness. Shamanism can be described as gardening. I first heard this concept from one of my teachers, Sandra Ingerman. When you think about energy work in your energy body, which is composed of your physical body and the auric field surrounding you, the chakra system, lines of energy that are running through your system, we are looking to weed out intrusive energies or invasive energies, those that do not belong in your system. And we are looking to restore or replant those energies that are vitally yours that have left, or those that can support you. So We might do a power retrieval, which is retrieving a power animal with whom you have had a relationship that has bolstered your own energy and your own abilities. We might do a magic retrieval, retrieving a magical object. I've retrieved staffs for people, or rings, or things that they had a connection to, oftentimes in a past life or through an ancestral line, and bringing those back on board in their energy field so that they can have that kind of access. Sometimes we will do ancestral work. So if you're coming and presenting with a certain kind of situation that you've been unable to budge, let's say it's anxiety or depression or some sort of repeating pattern that you've tried to overcome and have not been able to. Sometimes these issues stem from ancestral lines. And so we would look at where that was coming from. I'm always looking for the root of the problem or the challenge and to extract it from the root so that it's no longer with you, no longer affecting you, or transforming it. Oftentimes the kinds of challenges or burdens that we have in our lifetime also have gifts. So how do we transform this and reclaim the energy so that it is available to you and you can be more in the fullness of your own power, consciousness, awareness out in the world? These are some examples of what shamanic healing can do. I recommend that you book your session on a day when you do not have a lot happening. So it's okay if your morning was chaotic and then you come into a session and you've had a little bit of time to land. I highly recommend a clear stretch of time following your session where you can attend to yourself, because sometimes following sessions, people feel more drained than usual. Sometimes they feel more raw or vulnerable. Sometimes they just need to pass out on the couch for hours. Sometimes they need to go to bed hours earlier than usual. That's one side of the spectrum of what's normal. The other side is sometimes people have a ton more energy than they had before they came in, or they might feel just the same as usual. So know that there's a whole range of what's normal following your session. And I would plan for the possibility that you might be tired and want to just lie down or go out and be in nature, be by yourself, not in an overstimulating situation, just so you can tend to yourself more deeply. The space that you are preparing for your session should be one in which you feel comfortable, in which you won't be interrupted. I know this is hard for parents or if you have animals in the house. If you are on a cell phone, I highly recommend that you put it on a do not disturb setting so that you're not getting little buzzes or texts while we're on the call. That can help you to drop in even deeper. Have water nearby. Sometimes people will get parched during a session, and definitely you'll want it for after a session. If you choose to light a candle in your space, please make sure it's safe. We do everything on the phone. I find that that minimizes distractions, that you're not sitting on Zoom looking at yourself. You're not looking at me and gauging my reaction to what you've told me. You can just sink in and really drop in on a deeper level. And for me as well, when I do sessions, generally I'm in this space. This is my office and I am pacing. I'm on a hands-free landline and I'm talking and I'm rattling. And so there's really not much to be watching. And what I really want for you is to be focusing on the internal, on what's happening inside of you. How do you feel? What's showing up in your body? So you're tracking the internal experience of the session. There are 3 parts to your session. There is the check-in, there is the receptive part of the session, and then there is the debrief. What we're headed towards is setting an intention of what your goal is for the session to direct and to focus the energy. Now, sometimes people come in and they say, I have 3 intentions, or maybe they have more than that. I will always ask you to prioritize in order of importance what your goals are, so that we know that if we only have time for 1 intention, we've gotten to the most important one. If there's room for 2, we've gotten to the most important 2. and so on. I'd say any more than 3 is probably too much. And if you come into that session clear, we will spend less time focusing on setting the intention and more time in the work of the session so that you can receive more healing. Sometimes just talking about the intention is healing, but it's different than a therapy session where the act of talking is not the primary medium of healing in a shamanic healing session. The primary medium of healing is those cosmic, divine energies that are coming through and working through you and clearing you out so that you can receive the relief or the boost that you're looking for. So we'll have a check-in, and then I will instruct you to lie down. The receptive part of the session is the meat of the session, and it takes up the most time. I'm invoking the energies of the 4 elements, of the 7 directions, of whatever divine being or ally is going to do the work. I use repetitive percussion to shift our brainwaves, to move us into an altered state of consciousness. I'm talking throughout the session because it's my process, but also because there is so much information that's coming through about the source or root of the issue, what's happening inside of you, who's showing up, what god or goddesses or beings are showing up to work with you. All of this is coming through. And so I like to state all of it so that you know, and record all of it so that you have it. Oftentimes people say they'll listen to it multiple times to the recording of their session, and they'll pick up on more information that they didn't catch the first time because there's so much that's happening. So I like to ensure that you have full transparency in a session, both during it and after in your recording. During the session, I advise you to let your body be your guide. Sometimes you will find that you're so tired that you cannot stay awake during the session. Don't worry about that. It's recorded, you'll have the content, and the energy is still working in the way that it needs to. So you won't miss anything, and you can trust that your body just needs to put you into a state of sleep to receive the session. I would absolutely trust that. Observe your breath. Sometimes people notice their breathing wanting to change during a session. I would liken this to the birthing process where our bodies know how to move energy or move something out of our field. And so you might notice yourself moving into a more active breathing. That's the body doing the work that it needs to move energy. If your body is wanting to stretch or move, laughter, crying, these are all typical things that are happening during sessions. Everything's welcome. Sometimes people need to scream. Having a pillow nearby can help with that. If you want to put the phone on mute, even better that way. That way I'm not hearing it in my ear. If the session is feeling too intense for whatever reason, please speak up and let me know, and I'm happy to adapt in whatever way is needed. If I don't hear from you, I will keep rattling and talking. After the receptive part of your session, we move into a debrief session. So generally, the person who I'm working on has moved into some sort of deep state of relaxation. And so I will gently bring you out. And then we have another check-in, which I call a debrief. And so that's your opportunity to reflect on your experience during the session. If there's anything you want to share about what came up or what your experience was like. And if you have any questions about what came up in your session, that's also the opportunity. The content of your session will typically fly out of my head very quickly. It's also the reason that I have the recording for you. When I send your recording to you following our session, I upload it to Google Drive. I send you a link, and I let you know that I typically delete it 1 week after your session, and to let me know if you need more time to download it. I highly, highly recommend that you download it, because one of the most frequent questions that I get following a session is, I didn't download my recording. Do you still have it? In the debrief part of the session, we are also talking about self-care. So there are standard self-care practices that I email you. Everyone gets an email the day after their session with self-care, and I will also go through with you on the phone after your first session. Sometimes there are self-care recommendations that come up through your session that are specific to you. And so if those have come through, first of all, I've named them in the session in your recording, and then I will also reiterate them in that debrief conversation at the end of your session so that you can remember about them. If you are feeling blissed out or in an altered state after your session and you need or want to get up and out into the world, I highly recommend dark chocolate. That said, I generally don't recommend that you indulge in lots of sugar following a session. If you're feeling ungrounded, I recommend that you eat root vegetables. Those can help ground your energy, and also going outside, spending time in nature, being barefoot on the ground is helpful, or putting your hands on the ground. These are all things that can help you to feel more in your body, more grounded, more connected. I welcome people from all different backgrounds, all different genders, ideologies. If this work resonates with you, then I say go ahead and book it. I look forward to working with you. Wishing you all the best on your healing journey.